p.m. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Capitola City Council. I want to thank and welcome everyone who's in the audience this evening and everyone who is watching from home. And let's begin with a roll call, please, Sue.
Councilmember Harlan.
Here.
Councilmember Norton. Here. Councilmember Bottorff.
Here.
Councilmember Termini.
Here.
Mayor Story.
Here. Next, I'll ask Councilman Norton to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, sir.
Well, this evening we have three presentations that we'd like to start the meeting with. The first presentation is a certificate of appreciation for Dory Steinman, who has been our representative on the board of the Santa Cruz County Community Television of Santa Cruz County, I should say. And so, Dory, I'm going to come right up front here. We have a certificate to present to you, and so come on up. And you guys come on up as well.
I was very surprised.
It's wonderful. Now here, let's see, the camera, I shouldn't be telling you guys this, but the camera is right there, so let's face this direction, and we'll do this honoring and giving us of the certificate to Dory. But before we begin, maybe you guys could introduce yourselves.
My name is Matilda Rand, and I am the vice chair of the board, together with Dory for many years on the board, and always a pleasure.
I'm Joe Hall. I'm on the board of community television, and I've been on for a number of years, and Dory was always a wonderful anchor in some really interesting meetings, and so I'm going to really miss her for this time of service. Thank you, Dory.
Hi, I'm Keith Gudger. I'm the chair of the Board of Community Television, and I'd like to say Community TV is honored to have had your 10 years of service, and we very much appreciate all you've done for us. You stuck through thick and thin. Thank you, Dory.
Well, yes, let's have a round of applause. And thank you, all the board members, for being here. Thank you, Dory, for serving as our representative. Don't leave yet, Joe. On the Community Television of Santa Cruz County Board of Directors from September of 2005 and through just this past August 2014. And I do want to give a little plug for Community Television. You know, they are the community's access to media throughout Santa Cruz County. They, in all the years that I've been on the council, they've been here every single meeting in order to televise it and put it out to the community for those who cannot be in this audience. I know you do that for every local government meeting that takes place. You're an important part of public access to their leadership and to the local government. I know you also have many programs. People can become members, and you also provide classes to people who may be studying video or want to be involved in the production. So I would encourage everyone in the community to, if you're interested in the arts, in government, and the medium of television and video, please get involved with Community TV. They are a nonprofit organization as well, so please donate, because it is an important part of our community. So, Dory, thank you. And if you
need a replacement.
Oh, yes, and that's right. Let me also put a plea out there. I know we will be putting out and advertising for our representative on community television. So everyone out there, if you're interested, look for that. Please apply so that we can have somebody to continue Dory's legacy. So thank you again, Dory. And
I'm still doing my TV show weekly, but I just felt I couldn't do everything. Getting a little older now, so.
as we all are. And
I
so,
wrote a book, too, so
and,
I cut that.
well, you sound very prolific. What is your TV show?
When is it? It's on Thursdays and Saturdays at 6 o'clock, just prior to your meetings here. And it's called Your Second 50 Years. And then somebody suggested, why don't you put that into a book? So I just did that. So in my second 50 years, I wrote a book.
Well, wonderful. Well,
Something different.
we will certainly look for that. And everybody look out for Dory's TV show on Tuesday, Thursdays, at Saturdays at 6 o'clock. So thanks again, and here's our certificate of appreciation, and let's have one more round of applause for Next, we have an introduction of Cooper Sandin. He's our newest employee with, as a maintenance worker in our Public Works Department. And Eddie, you're going to introduce him?
Yes.
Good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Eddie Ray. I'm with the Capitola Public Works. It's my pleasure to introduce to you tonight Cooper Sandin, our newest employee. Cooper is the youngest of 4 children, raised on a 60-acre ranch in the Soquel Hills. He grew up doing some plaster, lots of plaster with his father, and he's also has a background in construction. So again, I'd like to introduce you to Cooper.
Welcome, Cooper.
How's it going?
Yeah, it's going really well for us. And how's it going for you?
Good.
And
Excited to be here.
Good.
Look forward to my career with Capitola Public Works, and I can't wait to get started.
well, we're very pleased to have you. Tell us a little bit about your background. Where'd you go to school?
Went to Soquel High. I also went to New Brighton. Spent a little time in Montana, and now I'm back here, just working away.
Well, that's great. Sounds like you grew up here.
Yeah, I
and
was born up Old San Jose Road, about 6 miles.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome. And I think when you say career, this is I think a wonderful place for you
It is.
to begin a career. And you don't know, someday you may take Eddie's position over here. And so
We'll see.
So well, welcome. It's really good to have you as a part of our team.
I think.
That's why I say that. I mean, Eddie, weren't you this young when you started?
I wish.
Okay, well, Cooper, welcome once again, and we look forward to having you on our team.
All right, thank you. I appreciate
all right.
it.
Cooper, have they let you drive the street sweeper yet?
No, not yet.
That's a real honor in public works, so work your way up there.
Can't wait. We'll be there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice to meet you.
You too.
Okay. Now, next we have a presentation of receipt of a donation from the Aussie Dog Park, Inc. I'm going to ask all the folks that are involved with that, Joan and Gail, and anyone else. If you'll come up here to the front. Oh, yes. And Ozzy as well.
Can't do without Ozzy.
Now, I was wondering if Joan or if Gail, if one of you would like to tell the story of Ozzy's story. I know it's a heartbreaking and tragic story, but I think it has led to some wonderful results and outcomes eventually. And so, Joan, why don't you tell everyone?
Okay.
Yeah.
So Ozzy spent about, I don't even know how long, a few months with his owner riding across the U.S. from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, all the way to, the ultimate goal was San Francisco. And they made it all the way to Santa Cruz, and unfortunately got hit by a vehicle the evening of May 4th, 2 years ago now. And his owner was killed, we hope, instantly, or But anyway, Ozzy spent the night there by his side until my husband and I rode up on our bikes, and laying in the bike lane was of Highway 1 just north of Wilder was Ozzy and some debris and different things, and we put it together and realized that it was a hit and run. Saw the bike in the bushes and later unfortunately found Josh, his owner. So since that time, we've come to know Josh's family from Cape Cod quite well. They asked us to adopt Ozzy, and since then we've decided that Josh's mom, Jen, has decided to take up the cause of doing a dog park for Ozzy in memory of Josh. And we were searching for a spot, and McGregor came up as an option to other suggestions, and so we decided that we would take that on, and she formed a foundation named Ozzy Dog Parks, and if you go to OzzyDogParks.com, you'll see some information and follow the status of our fundraising efforts, which we're so happy that we got Gail and Gail's Bakery to join us in the efforts, and we were able to make the $8,000 requirement to be able to name the dog park in honor of Josh. So the official name that the family has come up with is Ozzy's Dog Park in memory of Joshua Rain Laven.
Well, thank you, Joan. I mean, it is such a tragic story about Joshua, who had ridden his bicycle across the country. And actually, he was doing it as a tribute to a friend of his that was on vacation who had passed away. And then he was tragically killed, actually out near Wilder Ranch on Highway 1. I think, I mean, on behalf of the city, on behalf of the city council and all the residents of Capitola, I think we're particularly touched and honored that we have this opportunity to have a dog park and to create this legacy for Joshua and Ozzy, who spent the night with Joshua's body that evening. And I think it's very fortunate, Joan, that you were just happened to come by there. And Gail, I want to thank you also for being a part of this fundraiser, for bringing attention to the community about the Ozzy Dog Park corporate nonprofit organizations, and I assume that they're going to be doing this in other locations throughout the country. So it will be a continuing effort.
We're hoping to. They're trying to locate a similar situation in Cape Cod, near either near Brewster or Chatham, where he was raised, and be able to have a dog park there as well. They've run up against some people that don't want that, and it's been an interesting challenge to listen to and realize that as dog owners, I just assumed that everybody would want to have a place where dogs can all go and socialize and run free and not, bother other people. And some people just don't think that's a good idea. So I would say that if any of you are dog lovers and want to see that, to try to jump on and support that, because there are people out there that are challenging this. And I would love to, we've brought Ozzy back once to visit back there, and we'll plan to do that again, and I would love it if he has a park to go to out there as well.
Well, that would be wonderful. At least we know he will have a park here on the West Coast, here in Capitola, to be able to come. And I do want to let everybody know we are going to have a special dedication out at the dog park at McGregor. We're talking a little bit more about that on the agenda this evening, but I don't believe it's scheduled yet, but everybody look for that. We certainly want to invite all the residents of Capitola, come to the grand opening of the dog park. Hopefully Ozzy can be there, and you will be there as well, Joan. And so that would be wonderful.
Josh's mom, Jen, would like to try to make it if we can give enough notice. So if we can schedule that, I'd like to try to get her to.
Yeah, that would be wonderful to have her there as well.
She would really like
Right.
to participate in that.
Gail, did you have anything you wanted to?
I just want to say that this is one heck of a dog. This is a really unusual dog. When Joan and Ozzy came to visit me to ask for some help or figure out how I could help in some way, I immediately bonded with this little being. He looks at you and you feel like you could just start talking to him. He's just going to start talking to you. So if you get an opportunity, wherever you see him, stop and talk to him, because he's a great dog. And I really believe that I'm so happy that Capitola finally has a dog park. You know, we should have it. At Capitola should have a dog park, and now we do. I'm really happy.
Well, thank you.
So
And
there's your check.
And thank you so much to the Aussie Dog Park Inc.
Yeah.
For this contribution. We're honored to be able to name the dog park after you, Ozzy. He is looking right at me as I'm talking, and I think he knows. Would you like to say something, Ozzy? Yes, he is sniffing the microphone. So thank you. We're
Got dressed up.
right. Yes, we're very honored.
Susan, she got the bow on him because she thought he needed to be dressed up for this event.
Right. Well, thank you, and we'll see you out at the grand opening. Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you for the donation. Next, moving on with our meeting this evening, we will have a report on closed session from the city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor Story. We had three short items of pending litigation that we discussed in closed session this evening. The first is a personal injury suit filed by Patricia Greenwood versus the City of Capitola that was just recently filed and referred to our JPA insurance pool for defense, and we just apprised the City Council of that fact. Council took no reportable action in closed session. I reported to the Council on the Schrodel matter that the Court of Appeal had denied the writ petition filed by the plaintiffs in that matter, and that the matter is now back in the Santa Cruz County Superior Court, but the Council took no reportable action. That was just a status report. And finally, I reported to the Council on the lawsuit Jamie versus American Traffic Solutions, on which the city is not a defendant but is a real party in interest, because the lawsuit involves the installation of traffic red light cameras on city traffic poles, and it's a prevailing wage lawsuit. The city, by law, has to be joined to the lawsuit, but does not actively participate in it. That's the end of my oral report on closed session. Thank you.
Thank you, John. The next item on the agenda is additional materials, and we have a couple of additional materials here on the dais this evening. One is pertaining to item 9D on the agenda this evening, and it's actually a printout of the fiscal year 13-14 preliminary year-end financial report. We'll be getting into that in more detail later. And the other is an amendment to the resolution, which is recommended on item 9F, and we'll be getting into discussing that in more detail later this evening. With that, we'll move to additions and deletions to the agenda. Does staff have any additions or deletions?
Mr. Mayor, staff is recommending that item 9A on your general government agenda this evening be continued to October 9th. Staff would like to get a little bit more input from the public regarding some of the items to be covered by the ordinance. However, we've already noticed the hearing for this evening, so we are recommending continuance.
Is there a motion to continue item?
So moved.
9A.
9A.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Anyone in the public wish to comment on the motion to continue item 9A? Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back, and I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Item 9A is continued until October the 9th. Any other additions or deletions from staff, from council members? Seeing none, we'll handle the rest of the agenda as it's published. Next is the public comment section of our meeting. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on items not on tonight's agenda. Yes, please come up. You can sign in if you wish, just so that we have your name for the record. It's not required, though. Yes. Hi.
Hi. Good evening, Mayor Story and council members. I'm Sharon Saris of the Monterey Bay Electric Vehicle Alliance, and Beverly DeShow is the president of the Electric Auto Association of Central Coast. And basically, we're here tonight after fulfilling our goal of holding a very large event at the Capitola Mall last Sunday in honor of National Drive Electric Week, which is successful all over the country and into Europe and other countries with 150-plus events. So we're very pleased to want to really thank you for your support as the city in helping us provide that event at the Capitola Mall. The mall itself was very helpful in helping us organize such a large event, and obviously only do 3 a year perhaps where you can use the parking lot. So they worked very hard to help us, and we learned a lot about working with the Capitola Mall, and it went very well. So besides a large display of electric vehicles, there are other things going on at the event, test drives of 3 different electric vehicles, which were organized by Ecology Action, and just a lot of fun with, we figure, 600 or 700 people coming through in that 4 hours on Sunday. In addition, I want to thank the city. We want to thank the City Public Works Department, which was particularly gracious in assisting us with the street banner through Public Works Director Steve Jesberg. He really helped us a lot in figuring that out and learning something from that part of how to have banners on streets. And so, of course, we also want to thank you as organizations who really encourage people to purchase or lease electric vehicles and learn about them, that you're continuing support of the 2 public charging stations in the upper lot here. That's really helpful because they are key to people driving through and being here and spending time in the city. So basically then we want to just award the City of Capitola with a certificate of recognition for your organizational and personal support. And we can leave that here. You can display it proudly.
Well, thank you, Sharon.
And then in addition, we want to specifically thank Councilman Michael Termini, because he was one of our advisors and really helped us, again, with this organizing the event and being there and helping us also distribute other certificates of recognition to leaders. But we thought, this being the first councilman right after the event, we wanted to personally thank the city leadership and staff for helping us. So thank you very much. I'll leave these right here.
All right.
Yeah, it's okay.
Thank you. Mike, did you want to?
It was big fun. There's a lot more out there than you imagined if you haven't researched electric vehicles. The all-electrics, the Volt that has the internal combustion backup, the Sola, not ready for market yet, but the family pure electric car. What was it?
Stella.
The Stella.
Stella.
It was. It has solar panels on the top, and it runs itself. I mean, just an amazing car. Seats 4, unusual design, and it was put together by students, and it was big fun. I enjoyed it. Thank you for including me.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for being able to wing it when we lost our notes about handing out the certificates for us. Thanks.
That's what we do.
You did it well. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having the event, the first of such event in Capitola, and hopefully the beginning of an annual event in Capitola. So
this is our 4th year of doing it. We've had it in Santa Cruz the previous 3 years.
Yes.
So
yes, right. Well, we're very pleased to have you in Capitola. So yes, next for public comments. Yes.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Devlin, and I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak. I have a concern.
You put the microphone down, please, so we can hear you.
I'm short. But I have a concern on Monterey Avenue. I have some questions for you as far as what exactly is being done, because it seems like it's been a while since that road has been repaired, and the chunks of asphalt are coming up. And So that is a concern, but it's also mostly a concern for me as far as how the children are getting to school. And I feel that there's a competition between commercial vehicles that are authorized to go through this state, through our street, and the children themselves. The children are now skateboarding down, they're walking, they're bicycling all the time. It doesn't seem to really have a period of time where we're not having children. We have more families coming back into our area again, which is wonderful. And I guess my question for all of you is what is being done? When are we going to have traffic controls? For example, the stop sign that's on the school property lets people know that they're speeding, and they may be speeding at 30 miles or more, yet there's no consequence. Tickets are not being given because it's not set up in that particular arena. So my question is, what can we do as residents to get rid of commercial property? What can we do to protect our children? I know that there are some grants that are coming through. I've talked to Dennis as far as there are some safe school projects going on. I've left a message for Harvey over at the district office. But anyway, so I don't know if you can address this now or it needs to be done later.
It needs to be done later.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not a question and answer session with the council, Cheryl.
Okay.
But you may leave your questions with the staff. And I think that they can certainly get back to you. And you're also welcome to email me as the mayor or any of the council members. So in fact, all our emails are on the Capitola website. And then we can respond and answer your questions and let you know what the things that we're doing to work with the school district to provide safe routes to school. That's the name of the grant. There's some efforts being put on right now. We can provide you information about the enforcement. The police chief will be happy to bring you or give you information about that on Monterey, and as well about any street repairs, about our schedule of projects, improvement project, capital improvement projects we call them. So give your list of questions to staff. You can leave it right there with Sue, and email us. You're welcome to do that as well. Okay.
Sam?
Thanks, Sam.
Yes, Dennis.
I'm going to follow up on Cheryl's request here. I think that it's time that we have a discussion on a major problem that happens in front of that elementary school every single morning and afternoon now.
Middle school.
And that it certainly is uncomfortable for parents coming there the way they are. It's uncomfortable for kids, and because of the situation, it makes it more dangerous because of the cars for the kids that come there. And the Save Routes to School program that I thought was going to take hold for us doesn't seem to be happening. And now we were hoping it would be in place, part of it would be in place before things. So I'd like to agendize this item and let Steve give us some direction on what we can do as a community to work on this problem. So,
Mr. Mayor, I was also, the same question was posed to me while I was canvassing the neighborhood in Cliffwood Heights. Mm-hmm. And the CIP program looks like fiscal year 15-16 has Monterey overlaid. So that's the paving program is looking at beginning of July next year.
Well, I think we can very well agendize the item, Dennis, based on your request. But my understanding, and I just asked, talked to some of the trustees of the school district, they were going to give us an update on the survey that's being conducted. To me, having that survey and having the survey results may make our look at the item maybe more meaningful, because then we have to come back. But maybe what I'll do is I'll follow up with the school district board and see what those survey results are, where they are with that survey. If it looks like it's still months out, then why don't we go ahead and agendize it, okay, to bring some attention to it. But if it looks like the survey is complete and the report is coming relatively soon. Do you have an update on that, Steve?
Yeah, I actually have the first draft of that report, and I'm reviewing it right now. So I anticipate it will be done, and I've asked the consultant to come and make a presentation to the council. So I don't have a firm date yet, but I think it will be sooner than later, and I think we can have that discussion at that time.
Okay. October or November, possibly? Is that
Yeah, the
too
second
soon or
meeting
too
in
late?
October. You know, they're working for the school district, so I have a hard time holding their feet to the fire. But at this point, I anticipate probably the second meeting in October, early November.
Okay. So how does it sound? Okay, Dennis?
That's fine.
Great. Okay. All right. There you go, Cheryl. Anyone else under public comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close this part of our meeting, and we'll move right on to City Council, City Treasurer, staff comments. Let's begin with staff comments.
As the council knows, we've closed out our annual season with the lifeguards under our contract with Santa Cruz, City of Santa Cruz. We did end up with some remaining balance in that contract with the City of Santa Cruz, and so we'll either carry over that balance, or if the weather dictates, we will try to keep lifeguards out on the beaches through the October weekends. So we'll make a call depending on the weather. Otherwise, we'll carry over the residual contract balance.
Good. Any other staff comments?
Yes, I do have some, Mayor. I just want to announce again that we are still recruiting for a city representative on the Community Television of Santa Cruz County Board of Directors, and it's on our website. And now that we're getting sort of near the election and end of the year, we're beginning the recruitment process for various city committees and commissions, and those include the Planning Commission, the Architectural and Site Review Committee, the Art and Cultural Commission, the Commission on the Environment, Finance Advisory Committee, and the Traffic and Parking Commission. And all that information and the application is on the city's website. And if they have any questions, they can call the city clerk's office. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sue. City Treasurer? You have any?
No comments.
Okay. Council members?
Yes.
Mike?
Since we last met, we had 20,000 of our closest friends in town for the Art and Wine Festival. And a good time was had by all. It was performed well by our Chamber of Commerce, made them their year's budget to keep them going, and it was just a magnificent festival with magnificent weather. I would also like to request on a future agenda at some point, as you know, I'm your representative to the County Library Joint Powers Board, and we're beginning to discuss the impending parcel tax that we may be putting on the ballot next year. And the discussions have gotten down to distribution of funds, and I feel that, you know, while most of the time I can make a good decision and represent the city of Capitola on my own, at this point, with the type of funds and the size and the amounts and how important the library is to Capitola, I feel the need to look to my other council members for some direction on what my position should be in this discussion. So perhaps, Mr. Mayor, in some future agenda, we can bring it back and have a discussion about it.
Mike, is there a particular time frame, or you would
in
want
the next few meetings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, why don't we try to maybe schedule that for one of the October meetings?
Second meeting in October is probably more than soon enough.
Okay. Any other council member comments? Ed? Stephanie?
I attended the annual Gray Bears picnic this last week, and it's a great event as always. People had a wonderful time, and as you know, they suffered a really tragic loss with a fire in their part of their warehouse, and they used that area to store and also sell items that they use to supplement their operations. I didn't really realize that. I thought that all of the food that goes out in their brown bags was all donated, but it's not true. They do buy some of that, and that's what they use the money, some of the money, their profits from their thrift store. So it really is affecting their operations. So they're going to be doing some reorganizing and some looking at their operations, and when they're ready, they'll contact us and me and Lisa and others that can maybe help put the word out of when they're ready to receive lots more donations. Right now, I don't think it's now because they don't have the space. And they're also looking for some commercial space so that they can continue to have a retail operation during the holidays when they make a lot of money. And people buy a lot of things during the holidays. And they do have great deals there on all kinds of things. in their thrift store. So I'll keep you posted about that. We'll see how we can help them, because they've done so much good work for this community that now we can help them.
Thank you, Stephanie. Dennis? Yeah.
Yes, I'd like to request that the council concur with me in directing staff to look at the possibility of allowing outdoor seating for restaurants in the village. And this is a common thing that's going on in many tourist and visitor type of cities all over the country. And certainly we're not inventing the wheel here. We're just putting in place that makes that village possibly something that makes it more inviting and a fun place to be, and making it economically feasible for many restaurants that do not have adequate parking. So just to bring it back to us as a study and a look at of using the village outside areas as the possibility of adding seating to some of the restaurants.
Well, you know, we're going to be looking at that with the zoning changes. That's one of the things we're going to be looking at, and maybe we could just move that.
I would prefer not to wait that long. I prefer to do that before this is. And what it would be a demonstration project. It wouldn't be part of the zoning ordinance at first. So we can see the time we get around to the zoning ordinance. So we look at the zoning ordinance is going to take us 6 to 8 months before we maybe even begin it.
But we could do it about a lot of things. We could all pick out something here that we have as a favorite project to do as a demonstration project. I'm just concerned that about just picking up something and doing something new right now when we're in the middle of so many other things.
Is there a merchant that is interested or has come forth and asked?
Well, I'll tell you what's happened is everybody noticed Crusoe's is gone. And the reason they're gone, you can't possibly run a restaurant when you have 12 seats. And so maybe they may be the beginning of one. I'm sure that there's 3 or 4 places. In fact, I know 2 of the wine bars that have an interest in doing it. And so there's an interest in the village merchants. If it makes it more viable and a more pleasant place to go, we should do it. And we have excess parking right now. We can do it as a demonstration project. And by the time we get to the zoning ordinance, we would know whether it's feasible to keep them in place or not. And these are temporary type of setups, and they're not taking any public sidewalks. They'd be done in the street area, and allow for a better visitor serving environment than we have in the village right now, and make some restaurants that are dying right now survive, especially through our winter months. Thank you.
Are there other council members that are interested in agendizing that? I guess it seems rather hypothetical at this point. I wouldn't mind maybe asking staff to reach out to the BIA and seeing if there are concrete plans. I'm just concerned about, we did a whole signage. Went through this whole effort about allowing outdoor signage, which, it was received like a lead balloon. Never enacted, no one did it, and it just went nowhere. So it seems like we spent a lot of staff time and energy in developing a project that nobody cared for. So I get that would just be my concern, Dennis, and I guess, I would prefer if there was some concrete, even conceptual plan brought forth by one of the merchants that we could have something real to consider. So those are my thoughts. Unless I will bend to the will of the council here if they want to just discuss the topic.
Mr. Mayor, maybe instead of a specific project, perhaps Councilmember Norton could get the plan to the Esplanade and the village and see where the opportunity sites are for this. If we had something like that to look at, then we might be able to, have a vibrant discussion about it.
And the request from business people.
At some point, it'd be nice to see. I'm not sure where it could happen and in what form it would take. So I wouldn't speak on it until we looked at something. It doesn't have to have a formal application by a business, but it would give us an idea, like a housing opportunity plan, where we go, well, this is an area where it could be 4 seats or 6, or, this is an area that could be changed. Just to liven the discussion, we have something to look at.
I don't mind doing that. I was hoping that I'd get staff to do that, but I don't mind doing it. If I need to explore it, I will explore it. And I certainly have.
Staff.
I've already discussed this with a number of restaurants in ours, so
great.
I have that connection, so I'll be happy to do that.
You're our expert.
Right. Well, I think it would be very well, Dennis, if maybe you work with staff behind the scenes to develop some concepts, approach some merchants that are interested in those concepts. And I don't know if it needs to be I'm not saying a formal application, but at least some interest from the BIA that this is something that they would want to see and would actually utilize if we were to approve it. So maybe we could start there behind the scenes, and we could have a report back at a future meeting.
Okay.
Any other council comments at this time? Seeing none, I will move us on the agenda to the consent calendar. These are items that are handled with one vote. Actually, there's only two of them this evening, but unless a member of the public or a council member wishes to pull an item for separate discussion and vote. Any member of the public wish to pull a consent agenda item?
I'll move consent.
Seeing none, there's a motion to approve the consent. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously, which will bring us to the business for this evening, we'll start with item 9B since 9A has been continued to the October 9th meeting. Item 9B is to consider the approval of the McGregor Park Street access and traffic plan design. And the recommended action is to approve the proposed plan. And Steve, you're going to give us, lead us in this one?
I am. Good evening,
Okay.
Mayor and Council. Tonight we're here to discuss how to make some basic improvements to the access to the McGregor Park. As we know, we heard earlier today, the McGregor Park is going to have a dog park, Aussie Park, and a pump track and a skate park. Ground has broken on the park construction, and we're hoping to get it done quickly this fall. As part of it, as we all know, McGregor Park is located out on McGregor Drive, which is kind of out in the outskirts of the city, and so we wanted to look at putting together some improvements that we could put on the ground quickly and maybe some long-term projects. So our recommended improvements that we could construct as the park gets open would be a new crosswalk at Park Avenue and at McGregor and Kennedy, creating a 100-foot no parking zone on Kennedy at Park, and additional pedestrian warning signage up on the street farther up, and then installation of speed awareness signs on McGregor at both ends of the park property itself. And I'll show these all on a map in a minute. We have one, what I'm calling deferred improvement or long-term improvement, where we could look at widening McGregor through the S-turn coming off of Park Avenue, which would assist in widening the bike lanes there. So looking at a map, this is the McGregor Park site right here. I'll kind of start at this left side and work way. So we're talking about, right now there is parking on both sides of Kennedy Drive here, on both sides of the street. They can park right down to the intersection. We're recommending that we put a 100-foot no parking zone in here that will allow us to, people coming into that intersection on foot or on bike, to get over to the right and prepare to go across a new crosswalk. And we would put a new crosswalk across Park Avenue here that would tie into the bike lanes and some kind of informal trails that go through state parks here. As you can see, I've kind of highlighted this area on the shoulder of McGregor where potentially we could widen the road. We have to look at where the Caltrans right-of-way is. Even if we are partially on Caltrans right-of-way, we can probably get some permission or authority to do that. Certainly this would be a rather expensive project for a little widening, but it's something that we could look at into the future. Getting next to the park itself, working with the police department, we're recommending that we put speed signs at both ends. And what we're talking about here is adding the speed signs that are similar to what's on Park Avenue and on Wharf Road right now. They are the flashing speed signs. The police department's plan for those signs is kind of rotate them through the city, so they're not in one location all the time. So some of the time they would be here, and sometimes they'd be Park Avenue, sometimes they'd be other locations we're still working on. When the flashing signs aren't there, we would have regular 25-mile-per-hour speed signs there. And then we are adding a reduced speed signs because this is pretty close to the city boundary, and this is a county road to the east of McGregor Park, where there is a higher speed limit than we have within the city. These are all pretty basic improvements. We think it will do a lot to assist people who want to walk or ride to the park, and it's short of trying to build a sidewalk, which we could look at in the future. That would be probably quite expensive because we do not have the right-of-way from either the state parks or on the Caltrain side to put in a sidewalk at this time. So that is the extent of my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Right, thank you, Steve. Yes, Mike.
I have a couple of questions, Steve. How much would it kick the price up if we made that crosswalk a lit crosswalk?
Lit crosswalk legally are not permitted where there's a stop sign. They're only at uncontrolled intersections by the MUTCD mod. So, and their cost is
what
about...
if we put one in anyway?
Okay, so their costs are $30,000, I believe, the last one we installed.
Okay. And second question, maybe for the chief, and you don't have to come up. It's okay. Just as a suggestion, maybe the perfect sign to rotate there first is the one from Park Avenue. Just a thought.
I think that was
I don't know, just
under consideration.
It came to
yes.
mind only because that was the first one we put in. Maybe it's time to rotate it.
He put so much effort in putting that one in, just to remove it. Is it possible to put in like a bricked sidewalk or other kinds of markings or materials that make it stand out, raise it?
We could look at coloring the bike lane. I mean, that is, you actually color it green, which could benefit. I know that's, I got that idea from the draft state routes to school grant. I hadn't really considered it there, but we could do that. There are probably some small portions of sidewalk we could build, but the topography along get the mouse up. The topography along here is the road falls off pretty quickly here, so any sidewalk or we build there would need retaining walls too. So whatever we do, but we could look at coloring the bike lane.
How about just a DG path along there? Would that be a problem?
Grade it a little bit.
Yeah, it's just that I could go look at it a little closer and see if there's some places we could cut it in. It is like the topography is we have a guardrail around the corner here because it's a very steep drop off in this area, so there really isn't any room. Up at the top here, between here and the road into New Brighton, there might be a small area, and I think we're going to end up with some trails from the driveway, the park driveway, into our park anyway.
Realistically, from a walking standpoint, there's a pretty nice informal route that already sort of exists through state park property. So that will be, there's no plans to change that informal route that exists today.
Yes, Dennis.
Can I approach the screen up there? Can I have the microphone, please? That's fine. This is the state park entrance right here. Okay, this is the property right here. This is where the water district has graded and did their improvements there. So we really have, as far as safe passage, the main area that we have to deal with is this section here. And if I walked it today, and basically they've already graded this out, it'd be really easy to put the pathway here. Here's a little bit of a problem coming around the corner, and there may be even a way that you can come off at this point. But the safest way for kids to get from Cliffwood Heights area or from Capitola area is coming down Kennedy, and as you come across the crosswalk, there's a staircase right here on this side that takes you right down here. You're on State Park Drive, minimal amount of traffic there. Plus, you have a park ranger right here in the middle. It's a sight line from both ends. So, in discussion with state parks, it may be possible that we can just have an agreement that that we walk through it. And besides, we're all members of the public. We own this park too. So we have the right to go across it no matter if they like it or not. We do have a right to go across it. Kids have a right to go there. This is by far the safest path. No matter how nice or how safe you try and make it here, as long as it's along the edge of the road, we're going to have some bit of a problem. Plus, the cost goes so high when we start dealing with McGregor Avenue when we don't have to. So if we can get kids from here, the other pathway that comes in here is coming from Cortez, is it, that crosses down here by New Brighton here? You come in Cortez, there's a walkway that actually is very seldom used. It's a walkway trail that's semi-paved that comes over the top of this mound here along the back of the apartments that comes and drops in down right here too also. So there's two ways to get from the school area, coming down Kennedy. And this, I think all these ideas are good, but I think there's an easier path and a less expensive path for us to go to in the near future when we have this park operational without going to road improvements on McGregor. The crosswalk obviously is needed, and the signage and slowing people down along McGregor. But it's just a walking. When you walk that neighborhood, your natural path is not to come here. Your natural path is to come here and follow this all the way through. And I'll be almost assure you that that's where kids will go when they go in this pathway.
Have we had any communication with state parks?
I have tried last week to get a hold of somebody. I haven't had success yet, but I will continue to do that.
Yes.
Question? What's the cost every time we move the speed signs?
So we're going to install, if you notice, the speed signs are on 4-inch poles. We're actually just going to leave the poles there and unbolt the signs from the pole and rebolt them. So it's probably half a day of our crew's work, which is pretty.
So we're just going to put these pole installations at the selected places throughout the city?
And then just unbolt and rebolt.
And the cost of those installations with just the pole?
Pole installations themselves with the footing is probably, my crews can do it, and our crews can do it, and is probably about $500 in materials.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from council members? Seeing none, I'm going to open up this item to members of the public that would like to address the council. Please, yes, come on up.
Is this one? Okay. Hi. My name's Steve Piercy. I'm a SoCal resident, and I'm also the volunteer coordinator for the New Brighton Middle School Bike Club. After the first half year, we had a lot of fun going on bike rides and getting them bike helmets and teaching them how to ride safely in traffic. So I'm really excited about what is being proposed. First, I wanted to point out that last week, Governor Brown signed into law Assembly Bill 1193, the Protected Bikeways Act. And with this act, it adds a new Class 4 bikeway, which, in addition to Class 1, 2, and 3, and a Class 4 protected bikeway is separate from motor vehicles by a physical barrier or similar treatment, such as a slightly raised roadway. Protected bikeways are really good for all road users because it gets a separation from motor vehicles. It makes bicycles movement predictable to automobile drivers, and it gets bicyclists off of the sidewalk so that the sidewalks are reserved for people who are walking. So these are really good things to have. So in your planning for any future bikeways and development, please do consider the new Class 4 bikeway. I really appreciate that. For Kennedy, this is like the most direct route for New Brighton Middle School students to come from the other side of the freeway into New Brighton Middle School. And currently there are no sidewalks on this stretch, and there are no bike lanes or any bike separation. It's taken up, all the space there is taken up by, currently by 2 rows of parking, one on each side of the road, and 2 lanes of automobile traffic. And bicyclists are expected to merge into the roadway, pedestrians as well, in order to go down that roadway. In addition, there's only 2 crosswalks right now. there should be a fourth in addition to the new third one, because on the eastern part of Park Avenue, as you're coming down the sidewalk that does exist on only that side, you are expected to cross down into that footpath, but you have to contend with motor vehicles who don't really recognize that you have a right to cross in an unmarked crosswalk. So I would urge that you add that to this plan. And then one more thing on the westbound traffic on McGregor, that is really high speed. And we know that signs don't necessarily have as much effect as some kind of textured road marking, like the road dots, like they have in Soco Village as you descend. So if you could also consider that in your planning to help reduce speeds, that way people could actually ride their bikes and cross the road and then make the exit from the park, the state park, as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Steve. Does anyone else wish to address the council? Yes.
Yeah, I would like to also, do I need to sign in or? Okay. I'm on record from earlier, right? The area, I was just coming down that, going to check out the construction starting at McGregor, and coming down through Kennedy, I realized that I just kind of assumed there was a bike lane there all this time, and then I realized there wasn't one there. And I'm actually planning to bring my bike to the park with Ozzy and with our other dog, because I have a new cargo bike specifically for the purpose of going to the dog park with the dogs, so I don't have to get in the car, and it's too far kind of for me to walk there. So I'm planning to ride there with a big wide cargo bike, and I would love it if I felt safe enough to be in a bike lane that's actually cars are aware of. So I would really like to tag on to what he already said about that really that area is perfect to get as a designated bike lane, and whether it's people going to the bike park or any other use there. And then I also agree that I've ridden by there a lot, and it needs some crosswalks and maybe signage, and anything to slow down the traffic coming in. A lot of people use McGregor to cut over when the traffic's bad and they're going maybe in a bit of a hurry. So if you could consider that, I think that's a great idea as well. And I would, if I am walking with the dogs, I would probably pick the route that Dennis mentioned. I think the dogs would prefer that than getting them in the bike lane, walking around the corner as well, because when they're on leash, as you know, they could easily kind of pull out into that area. So if we could, whether it's signed or just educate people that it's there. I didn't even know that was there, so I'm going to check that out next time I go. So anyway, and also the green paint on the bike lanes is really, really helpful, as he said, not only for the drivers, but the cyclists, to kind of remind them that they need to stay within that lane, and to just get people to realize that there should be a buffer. There's the new 3-foot rule that you may have heard of that just passed, and I'm hoping people get educated about that. But having it marked and having a color really does help the drivers realize that they need to give us a buffer.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Okay. Anyone else would like to address the council? Seeing none, I'm going to close the microphone and bring the matter back to the council. Yes, Mike.
Steve, I have a question for you. Do we have on the west side of Park Avenue, right by your red line, that's a crosswalk there, isn't it, to the corner?
There's a crosswalk across Kennedy, yeah, that goes.
And does that crosswalk connect with any kind of pedestrian path that brings it to the crosswalk that goes?
There's no sidewalk on this side, so it's a crosswalk to here and then a crosswalk across Park Avenue to the sidewalk along this side.
Okay, so we do have a path around there.
Yes.
I would like to, rather than muddy up the water on this, I would, first of all, like to move the proposed plan, and in addition, ask Public Works to bring back a plan that gives us a bike path, and forgive me for my ignorance, I never realized there was no bike path on Kennedy. There is parking on both sides, and it never registered. So I think that rather than try and roll it into this, we need to bring a plan back to look at Kennedy as a whole there and see what we can do for bike lanes there.
So, excuse me there. Removing in construction or the addition of a bike lane would most likely require a coastal development permit in this
That's why I
area.
wasn't trying to
Right.
do it at this
Yeah,
meeting. I
Okay,
understand
just so
that.
we're along, it's,
totally
we've
understand.
identified that. It was originally one of our ideas, but at this point,
Sure.
something we can do now, and then we'd be happy to look at the rest of it.
But with
So-
the advent of the bike park and with this project,
Right.
I think now we have a little momentum and we can slip into the bike lane idea.
Was it, excuse me, is it just a bike lane or a bike lane and a sidewalk you'd be interested in?
Well, I think we'll start with the bike lane there.
Okay.
Because that's going to be most of the mode of transportation, I guarantee you.
Right. Okay.
And the fact that there's no bike lane at all there,
We do have sharrows on the road, but certainly a bike lane's more effective, I agree.
Yeah.
So, okay, we'd be happy to look into that.
Any other council member? Yes,
I have a
please.
question, Steve. Is the concern the removal of the visitor parking that it's on along that road for coastal? Is that the issue?
Yes, I think it is, yeah. And
So
it's
could we
within the
make-
coastal zone.
Could we
and-
make the argument that we're adding how many spaces at McGregor Park? for-
Right. I just think we
the
need to go
trade-off?
through the process. I don't think it really be confrontational or anything, but I think it's something we need to
If you
go
think-
through the process on.
If you think about the facilities that we're offering here, they're indigenous to both Aptos area, but also for the state park itself. The users in the state park will be using the bike park and the dog park and the things. So it's visitor serving in the park itself that we're creating.
We'll keep in mind that there's no bike path anywhere on Kennedy or Monterey, and so where the logical transition would occur, obviously, the further you go, the potential for the Coastal Commission caring about coastal access parking, because it's pretty close to New Brighton and the beach, we're not sure whether that's a big deal. I would anticipate that there would be some neighbors who would be concerned about losing parking in front of their house still on the street. So we're certainly going to be a balancing act, and it's one of those things that I think probably would be a robust discussion.
because I can see where it would come to removing parking along the entire one side of the street and putting a Class 4 two-way bike lane on one side.
Two-lane bike lanes generally,
Two-way bike lane.
two-way bike lanes, then you have bike traffic on the wrong side of the street,
No,
which,
I understand the.
you understand the trade-offs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing that hasn't been discussed in this scenario is the future of the Union Pacific corridor through there. As that becomes a bicycle and pedestrian trail, you can see it on the map. We're probably 50 yards behind the park there as a major thoroughfare for bicycle and pedestrian right there.
You're
That
absolutely
will be
right.
connected.
Yeah.
It could possibly be connected someday.
Yeah.
Is that a move to remove the rails or the?
No, it's
Oh,
not.
okay, I just wanted.
Well, but I think seriously we should continue the conversations with the RTC. Ozzy agrees with me about Capitola being able to initiate and begin improvements on that rail trail in this community. I mean, we were proposed that here, when the director of the RTC appeared before us, and so. I mean, I think, and this is a prime reason and justification for trying to push forward with the ability to do that, because there are already informal trails. I mean, if you walk along a rail trail right there where it curves, people have already cut pathways, up going right to the back of McGregor Park. I did want to ask about coming over that the sidewalk, the new proposed crosswalk, and then it drops down, but there's kind of like a stairwell there. Could bicycles actually get down there fairly easy?
They'll ride down, yeah.
But you know what, we asked state parks about that, and they really want to discourage people from using that. That's a liability to them. They don't maintain that. They don't want it used. They don't want to encourage people to use it. And I think we need to be really careful about that, because they're going to be here saying, what are you doing? Don't do this.
We're not encouraging.
Well,
we're just
we're not-
But we
bringing
need to
it
work with
light.
them, though. We need to work with them, because if they don't really want to use
That's
them, they should take it out.
Well, yeah, we should
You
work
know,
with them,
yeah.
because if it's it's going to be built, and they are going to come. And I think that State Park should work with us to make it the best possible and the safest approaches. And kids are going to be going through their, the State Park property. And so I think that they should be encouraged to work with us. And if we're engaged in making the improvements, offer to pay for some of these.
And they'll be
I
on
guess-
BMX bikes, believe me,
Right.
nothing will stop them.
I guess, given the interactions that I've had with state parks, previously I referenced it as an informal trail, and I think to the extent that it exists as an informal trail, hopefully the use will continue, but I think it would be relatively easy for state parks to just simply fence it off. So it's one of the situations where I think the current situation is positive, and pushing too hard to try to get improved access could result in a decision by state parks to simply close it. As Stephanie points out,
I mean, we already had
they may
that
view it as a
discussion with them.
liability.
Yeah, we had that
They're not
discussion.
subject to the Coastal Commission?
They actually are, but I think that they would allege that that there would be other factors that would give them a position where they would.
And financially, they're not going to contribute to anything we're doing because they have their own financial constraints. And
Yeah, I mean, well, I think it is part of us offering to do some of these improvements and to utilize, I think that property. It is state park property. And so I think we need to be able to work with them cooperatively because it's going to be there. And if we need to bring our state legislature on board with this to make things happen, then we should do that. Because I don't think that serves the public if they take those kinds of action, just to say, oh, we're going to close this off. So
well, they were worried about liability. That it's not ADA accessible. It has some slippery issues in the wintertime with mud and so forth. And they don't, they don't want to encourage people or legalize it to go down there, and then they trip and fall.
Legalized now, Stephanie. It's public access. It's public access
yeah, but they're not encouraging it. We're the ones that are encouraging it.
Well, I think those are the kinds of things that are impediment to, I think, good governance and public access and safe public access. And so I just think we should take the positions of trying to overcome, some of those bureaucratic handles that, really make, life difficult, and these are our kids that we're talking about. Hopefully they can see that as well. So, but I understand all those difficult issues, but I don't think that we should concede to them. But that's maybe going a little bit ahead of us here for what we're talking about this evening. Any other comments or
I made a motion
discussions?
to approve the.
Can I
Yeah, I'm
ask
sorry.
one question before you take action? First of all, I will continue to reach out to State Park, so we are
Thank you,
working along
yes.
that direction. I just want to clarify the bike lane we're looking on Kennedy. I kind of saw it going from Park Avenue to the next street up, and that was the extent. Do you want it to go further than that? Because then we are removing, parking in front of people's houses, and
I'd like to look at an artery, safe bike artery between this park and the middle school.
Okay.
That's a good start.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions at this time? There was a motion. Do we have a
Just
second?
whatever we
Yeah.
can do to make it as safe as possible now by signage, dots, color, whatever has been recommended, mentioned to us tonight that might help, that we should seriously consider to make it the best we can right now, and we'll take it from there and probably continue working on it.
Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. We'll
I don't
move.
know, did we have a second, Mr. Mayor?
I thought you...
I did.
Yeah, I think did...
I didn't hear it.
Okay,
I know.
yeah,
I saw
Dennis-
that look in your
It
eye.
was a silent second.
Silent, Dennis, silent second.
Silent second.
Either that or Ozzie seconded it. I don't.
I heard that.
So we'll move on now to 9C, which is to consider a resolution approving the McGregor Park pump track design by Action Sports Network for the McGregor Multi-Use Recreational Park. The recommended action is to adopt the resolution to improve the design of the pump track and for construction by Action Sports Network. Hi, Lisa.
Hi. Well, it's the McGregor night. So good evening, Council. This item here, the bike pump track is here for your approval. This is, the reason it's coming to you is for under California law. By having the council approve this, it will alleviate the city of liability. We're not actually approving the contract. The city has already let the contract with Action Sports Construction. So we're excited. I'm sorry I don't have the picture available. I brought it thinking that I could utilize this, but I'm not that savvy to get it up there in time. But we are underway. As you know, Earthworks is beginning construction. We have identified donor for the pump track, and I'm pleased to announce that it is Family Cycling, and they are partnering with CrossFit for $15,000, and therefore they will get the naming rights to that park. They are working closely with the designer, his name is Alex Fowler, who's a professional BMX rider, who just recently completed the Sky Park pump track up at Scotts Valley. When we originally put the proposal together and we had talked about it, with the designer, $15,000 was what he thought with the area, the confines that we had shown him, was adequate. We've come to determine that we can actually include a little more area for a separate toddler area. Prior to that, we had incorporated it together. So we've expanded the area, which is going to add a bit of additional cost of $2,500. And in addition, what we've learned from the Sky Park pump track is that we're going to want to put on the stuff called Soil Tech, which will bind the soil together and give it a much longer shelf life, and about 3 years in terms of how we'll bind the soil together. So that's another thing we want to consider adding into the as an option, and that's another additional $2,500. And what we're doing now is trying to identify additional donors, and Family Cycling thinks that they could probably come up with some donors for that. So I'm not too concerned, and it can come later as well. So what we're here tonight is just to meet the California law to alleviate the city of certain immunities by having the city council approve the design that we have put forward to you. And then we're expecting constructions to start towards the end of October. And that's it. I have any questions?
Great, thank you, Lisa. Yes, Mike.
Lisa, it's the little area to the left of the major portion of the pump track that you're talking about for the toddlers?
Right. So if you were, well, yes, if you were looking from McGregor towards the beach, it's going to, or it'd
I'm
be to
seeing
the
a little
left.
square with a...
Yeah,
with
that's
a,
it. The
right.
little square is it.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
That's other questions? Yes, Dennis.
So we reduce the size of the skateboard park to accommodate for this?
No, we're not. That actually was the area where there was a toddler area
Okay.
that we had, but we're still going to be able to fit in some of the... we didn't
Where's the
really-
picnic bench area? Is that right?
There, see that little red area where it says seating node?
Okay.
That's that.
Lisa, maybe this question is for Steve, but what are you going to do for ground cover and erosion control with a track like this where you have
It's
open
the,
dirt?
yeah,
How
the
you gonna
soil
do-
tech. This is actually a pretty cool material that is being used to bind soil. And the other thing is, you know, you want to keep in mind, you do want some of the movement in this. You want to be able to change some of the jumps.
Yeah.
You know, as you know, you want to keep it exciting, so you don't necessarily want it, you know, hardcore permanent spot. But the soil tech will really add to the or eliminate the maintenance, because it's going to bind the soil. It's going to make it a little more hard of a surface.
I'm talking about the area that's off the track itself. What about that? Well, how is that stabilized?
Off the track.
The green part.
Green area.
Oh, in between. No, it's just dirt. It's fine. That's just going to be soil. That's actually, it's going to be hard packed as well, but it's not going to have the soil tech on it. That's off track.
Okay, well, I'm sure there's ways that they've done it in the past, but you are adjacent to a riparian corridor right here, and you want to make sure you don't get any major erosion that comes out of that property. So
There's a drainage plan that's associated with the park.
there is drainage plan? Okay, all right. All right, thank you.
Any other questions from council members? No? Seeing none, are there members of the public that would like to address the council? Steve, come on up. I was hoping you'd have some things to share with us.
Hello. Again, my name is Steve Piercy, and I'm the volunteer coordinator for the New Brighton Middle School Bike Club. And just to restate, I've been leading them on bike rides, especially to pump tracks, and they are raring to go.
Good.
I'm really excited to see that this is finally coming to, that it's being proposed, and I hope that you approve the plan. I'm especially excited to see the toddler push bike area put into place. Where I live in my neighborhood, when I walk around with my dog, I see these 2- and 3-year-old kids just pushing around on their little bikes, and they're the cutest things ever. And this is a great way to get kids to be active at an early age and start to enjoy bicycling. So I'm really glad to see that there. I agree with the binder material. It does help keep the soil in place, and so you don't have to maintain it as much. And then finally, as far as additional fundraising, you may want to get in touch with the Mountain Bikers of Santa Cruz County, as well as Trips for Kids Santa Cruz County. I work with both of those groups, and they would more than likely support the pump track. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Is anyone else would like to address the council? Seeing none, I'm going to close the microphone. I'll bring it back.
I move staff recommendation.
Second.
The motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, staff. This is a wonderful project. It's going to be great to see that actually opened for use. Do we have a scheduled date yet for the official opening?
The Thursday after Thanksgiving.
At this point, the contractor is just starting work on it. It's probably 6 weeks away, so I don't have an official date yet, but we will certainly let you know as soon as we can.
Okay.
How about the Thursday after Thanksgiving?
Thursday after Thanksgiving? Is that?
You mean Friday after Thanksgiving?
I'm sorry, the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Uh,
Because Thanksgiving's on a Thursday this year, right? Okay, good. Just wanna make
Yeah, it's
sure.
new this year, yeah. Happy to look into that and see if we can meet that.
Yeah, that would be a good day. So, great. Thank you, Steve. So we'll move on to item 9D, which is to receive the fourth quarter budget report. The recommended action is just to receive the report. Hi, Tori, you're going to give us this presentation?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, Council. This is the fourth quarter preliminary year-end report. How we're going to proceed with the format is we're going to look at the year-end overview, review how the city looks at financial statements, as well as giving an update on where the general fund ended this year. We're going to look at some budget to actual comparisons, as well as some trends that we're seeing in property tax and TOT tax, sales tax and TOT tax. And then we're also going to look at how we stand with our cash flow. Usually December is a critical month for us as far as cash flow needs, and we'll just give you an update on where we are. We'll also look at Measure O funding, how fiscal year 13 ended as far as our projects and CIP, as well as our reserve funding, and look at a new chart that was included in the fiscal year 14-15 budget for planning purposes. This report is a little different from budgetary reports. It's preliminary in nature in the sense that we're still working on some final closing of the books. There might be some minor changes. We don't anticipate any big changes. Right now the accountants are working to prepare schedules for the auditors, and so we might see some minor changes, but we don't anticipate any material changes. Throughout the year, the city looks at financial management. We internally review expenditures and revenues, cash flows regularly. And as far as communication with the public, we communicate with quarterly financial reports that are presented to the website, as well as at city council meetings on the consent agenda. We also produce the comprehensive annual financial report, as well as the mid-year report, which is our next scheduled financial presentation, and followed by the annual budget. Just to give you an idea of where we are in the year end, sometimes the question comes up, why are we waiting until now to get some of the year end information? Because some of the processes are still going on, and we wait till June 30th to say that is our fiscal year end. And some of our vendors may not get our invoices to us until July. So we have, like say for this year, was an August 15th cutoff date. So we will accept invoices related to the June month up until that point, as well as receiving a significant revenue source from the county. In September, as we finally receive our sales tax true-up number. This is where we're at right now. The numbers that were included in the preliminary financial report are the final numbers. We have received the cash receipts for that. And right now, we're just getting to finalize year-end close. As we move through the year-end, we're going to be going through our regular audit in October. November, we're going to be assembling our financial statements and reviewing them. December, we usually present our annual comprehensive annual financial report, which goes to those with fiduciary interest. We send it to the state, as well as the county, as well to all of our debt service providers. To look at the general fund in a very broad overview, we began the year with $746,000 in beginning fund balance. We had initially projected that we would come in the negative 45,600. We actually came into the good 340,900, which leaves our year-end fund balance rather than 701,000 to just over 1 million. And if you recall, as part of the fiscal year 14-15 budget process, 475,000 of that money has been set aside already in this next year's budget. So in reality, if you're looking at what is our true residual fund balance that we can draw from, that's about $613,000. Just in a broad review of the fiscal year 13-14 revenues, and what we will do is we'll go drill down to some of these different levels in some other slides. We came in approximately $130,000 above budget, and approximately $83,000 greater than the prior year. Of specific interest will be the property tax, the taxes, license and permits, and intergovernmental and charges for services. The fines and forfeitures, use of money and property, and other revenues remained relatively constant. As you recall, in the prior year, we did have an extraordinary item, which was the insurance settlement, as well as a land sale and a property tax admin fee refund. Looking at three-year trends, the two that we'll focus the most on are going to be sales tax and TOT tax. We are seeing close to a $50,000 or $60,000 increase in property tax this year. Our other taxes have remained relatively constant over the three-year period. In sales tax trends, we're coming out 18.9% or 1.114 million year-over-year increase. But some of the things that we're seeing is we're actually coming in just slightly under budget. While this isn't that significant of concern when you see we're $40,000 below budget, there are some trends that we want to watch for, and we'll look at that in just the next slide. But if you look at fiscal year 12-13 and 13-14, you'll see the effect of Measure O, as well as what effect that quarter of percent district tax adds. One thing we wanted to look at is sales tax trends, especially towards the end of the year. If you'll recall, for the last couple of years, we've seen rising sales tax increases. We've been seeing close to, I believe, close to 10+%, 15% increases. And when you're looking, you can see the spreads between the fiscal year 10-11, 11-12, and 12-13 years. But now that we're getting into fiscal year 13-14, we're not seeing as significant of spreads. Our increases are ranging from 6.6% to 1.5%. And we're especially seeing that in the last two quarters, as we're beginning to see maybe these trends aren't going to increase as high. We're seeing more closer to, at the very end, close to just over 2% and 1.5% increase. That could be an important planning tip when thinking into the future years, because we have projected close to 2.5% increases from a budgetary perspective. So we'll be wanting to watch that closely. Our next sales tax data point won't be until December. So you know, we're just going to keep an eye on it. We're going to meet with our sales tax representative and ask them some questions just to make sure that there isn't any anomalies there. Another item we're watching is TOT tax trends. We're coming in 17.6% greater, or 189,000 greater than last year. We're actually seeing a $35,000 increase over the budget. As we work through the different projections for the fiscal year 14-15 budget, as well as the quarterly trends, we wondered if that warm winter season had an effect on our increased TOT. That would take place in Q3. While we're seeing more of a trough in fiscal year 12-13, we're seeing that we're still staying fairly constant above the fiscal year 12-13 line. Within each quarter, we're seeing between $30,000 and $50,000 over the prior year. 3-year other revenue trends. License permits, we're coming in at about $60,000 greater, primarily due to new building permits. We have the Toyota remodel, which is one of the items, or the Monarch Cove, that could be contributing factors. Charges for services, we're seeing increased parking meters, and we'll look separately at a slide to see how our parking meters are doing since we just opened the Pat Cove lot. And we're also seeing recreation fees, while not necessarily exceeding the budget, they are coming back to what they were in the prior year. If you'll recall, we had a reduction in close to $60,000, and we're seeing it coming right back up to that level. Fiscal year 12-13 in the other column, of course, we've got that $1.4 million insurance settlement, a property admin tax fee, and sale of property. Why fiscal year 11-12 in the other column looks higher than fiscal year 14 is because we were obtaining Pat Cove rents as well as city RDA interest. To look at parking trends, we're 8.4%, or $57,000 above the prior year. Currently, we're $40,000 above the budget. In fiscal year 13-14, we hadn't set up a system to track Pat Cove 2 separately. We do have that set up in the fiscal year 14-15 budget. But you can see that combined, possibly the effects of the increased tourism has led to this increase, or possibly the secondary parking lot. And we'll be able to see more as we go into this next fiscal year. We are seeing positive trends in parking for July and August. I want to say close to $70,000 above the $70,000 above the prior year. On the expenditure side, most of our expenditures have came in very close to budget, with the exception of personnel and contract services. Looking at it from a very high level, approximately we're $257,000 lower than budget, approximately $66,000 less than the prior year, with the main changes taking effect in personnel and contract services. Just moving into the 3-year expenditure trends, one of the things that might be noteworthy is the fiscal year 14. You might see that there's an increase in personnel services. We are below budget in that line item. Some of the factors that contributed to fiscal year 12-13 being lower is we have, in fiscal year 13-14, we have an additional Measure O maintenance worker 1-2. We also have the full-time community development director position, which was either under contract services or funded at a 0.25%. We have the negotiated half-a-year COLA increase, as well as moving a temporary parking enforcement officer to full-time. We're also seeing police overtime savings of $57,000. And in fiscal year 12-13, we had some position vacancies, the senior planner position. Within my department, we had a senior accountant position vacant for close to 6 months, and also maintenance workers. And also, there was the point of when we did our initial budgetary projections, if we would be coming in at the same level as projected. We might have projected someone to come in at a step C or D, when actually they may have came in at a step A. Initially, as part of the fiscal year 14-15 budget study sessions, we looked at cash flow. This is the cash flow chart that we presented. You'll notice that in September and November, the general fund is beginning to go into the negative and drawing on the contingency reserves. Because we have that additional $300,000 in fund balance that we're able to draw upon right now, the dashed line represents where we are right now. We have solid figures for July, August, and September where we're seeing our cash flow at. And as we move to October, November, and December, and January, we've used that to project out where we would be during those months. In January and February, we're returning back to the original model, the assumption being that during the mid-year, council may want to choose to appropriate some of that additional cash that we received in this year to other priorities. Just to recap of the Measure O funding plan, $490,000 was set aside for CIP street maintenance, and $613,000 was set aside for reserves. We are fully funding all of those priorities, and in the next couple of slides you'll see reserves. In fiscal year 13-14 we ended with $2.2 million. As you recall, in fiscal year 12-13 we began close to $1.8 million. You'll see that $613,000 contribution less $200,000 that was set aside for a retaining wall that went to the CIP fund, which at fiscal year 13-14 leaves us with a year-end balance of $2.2 million. We're projected in fiscal year 14 to reach $2.8 million in reserves, and in fiscal year 15-16 to be fully funded at $3.1 million. And this is 1 year earlier than what was originally anticipated. To give you an update on the CIP fund, the beginning fund balance for CIP was $655,000. Again, you'll see that inflow of the $491,000 in Measure O funds, along with other revenue sources such as non-Measure O funds, emergency fund, where we've seen that $200,000 come in for the retaining wall, as well as other sources which could have been contributions from the Esplanade Sidewalk project. Total revenues that came in were $884,000, less $603,000 in expenditures. And some of those expenditures relate to the Pat Cove project, as well as McGregor project and the Stockton Avenue project, Clare Street, and the Esplanade Sidewalk project, and the annual Slurry Sill project. The fiscal year 13-14 difference is $281,000. The year end, the CIP is estimated to have $936,000 left. Within the CIP fund, the finance department uses project accounting. What that system does is it allocates each project with a specific revenue and expenditure source. This allows us to make sure that Measure O funds are tracked within each allocated project. So if $400,000 is allocated to X project, that revenue and expenditure will be tracked year over year until that project is complete. The fiscal year 13-14 ending fund balance, $445,000 of that, it represents general fund contributions for the 38th annual overlay project, the Stockton Avenue project, Hill Street improvements, and McGregor lot. The Measure O funds of $491,000 represents carry forwards into the next fiscal year, which represents Clares and Wharf traffic calming, Bay Street streetscape, and Park Avenue sidewalk. Following slide is a new slide that was added in the fiscal year 14-15 budget as a potential planning tool. What it does is it shows the budgeted and actual revenues and expenditures through fiscal year 15-16. You'll see through that period we're trying to maintain a balanced budget. In fiscal year 11-12 was 1 year when we had an excess fund balance. That was reallocated in the future years towards reserve, CIP, and other priorities. What you'll see in the chart below is some of the items that typically council looks at as part of the budget process. They look at CIPs, the new facility fund, community grants, as well as a new OPEB fund. Listed in that chart is the amount that was allocated each year to those specific priorities. And in fiscal year 16-17 through 19-20, it excludes those amounts within that chart, but provides the amounts that are estimated to be available. So for example, in fiscal year 16-17, the $1.3 million would be set aside to allocate among those different items or among different opportunities. While council may choose some other areas to look at, this was just an exercise in being able to provide something to see as far as planning for future years. Things to think about for fiscal year 14-15, sales tax trends. We won't get our first data point in mid-December. Mid-year allocation of fund balance, we've seen where we came to the better of $600,000. There would be a point where if you wanted to try to figure out if you wanted to put more in transfers, reserves, fund other priorities. We'll be watching for general changes in the economy, monitoring TOT, as well as how we're doing with our parking. And also the triple flip sales tax program will be ending tentatively fiscal year 15-16. There was a one-time catch-up payment that will be due to us that's estimated to be right now of $230,000. Questions?
Yes, Dennis.
Tori, excellent report. Thank you very much. Easy to read. Two things. One is property tax. And I'm sure everybody else in Capitola received this week a notice from the appraiser that the relief they were given for the past 3 years has changed. They're reappraising all the properties and gone back up. Mine went up 17%. And so that's probably true of the whole community as far as property tax. So does that relate into this, with the reappraisal of probably all the Capitola properties? I would suspect that if it's a 17% raise for me, it's probably the same across the board. Is that significant in this picture? Or?
It wouldn't necessarily be as significant. It would be probably close to. Hold on, just a second. Typically, our base secured property taxes are $875,000. So if you're saying that you're going to get close to 10, you said 17%?
Yes, that's what mine was.
We get half a percent.
Yeah, that could. I mean, it would be something. It would be definitely some other figures that we would consider. And we would wait till we final it when we receive the numbers from the assessor's office.
Okay. I have one more question, please. Can we go to the parking page? I don't have a number here. It's probably numbered. It's right in the middle of the book. Parking trends. I'm having trouble. I'm confused on what I'm reading here because there's two village and village beach and village area. Is the village the paid parking up above, or is it the village itself and the black is the beach and village? Which is which?
Beach and Village is Pack Cove, Upper and Lower Pack Cove. Beach and Village 1 and 2.
So our Pack Cove revenue, is that small compared to what the village is?
Yes.
And in the last 3 years, we've seen flatlined, really. I mean, since 2011, we really flatlined on village revenues. We've seen an increase in Pack Cove, not significant, but some kind of, and then Cliff came into being. I guess that as we increase the parking areas there, we increase those. So what are you reading here, Jamie? What are you reading in this? What is this telling us?
Well, big picture, I think you can see overall the parking revenue is generally up. Now, why? Obviously, in the more recent years, it looks like the growth has come primarily from Pack Cove and Cliff. You'll recall that we did deploy the pay stations there a little bit later, and we added Lower Pack Cove, obviously, this summer. So what you're seeing, I think, is you can see a bump in the village overall revenue. My guess is that that bump that we saw between 10-11 and 11-12 is primarily driven by the pay stations, I think.
Okay.
And then what you're seeing is the bump in Cliff, and then you're in the Pat Cove 1 and 2 is being driven by the deployment of the pay stations, 1, and then 2, just the increased number of spaces we have with Lower Pat Cove coming online.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing it does tell me too is that the village is maxed out, because if it wasn't maxed out, you would see increase through time that it would have. But since 2011 to today, the village parking is at its max.
Yeah, I mean, Steve actually does have some utilization rates. I know he did a test run at some point when we were looking at how often individual spaces were filled. And, you know, there are spaces that are not filled all the time, but by and large, when you're on the Esplanade, they're filled all the time. The meters are active. So you're right. There isn't a ton of room for headroom in the village outside of rate changes.
Outside of rate changes? Thank you.
Are there other questions on the staff report?
I have one. Would you go to the cash flow chart? As I understand it, we're fully funded in our contingency reserve at about 1.6 million. That's true?
Hold on just a second.
Sorry, didn't mean, I know.
I'm sorry, there's
trying
so
to throw
many
you a
numbers I'm
curveball.
trying to get that. Our contingency is funded.
But we're fully funded. We're just working on backfilling the emergency at this point.
We do have some funds going into the contingency.
So doesn't 1.6 represent our policy? And
So the contingency policy funding level is 15% of the general fund expenditures right now. So rather than try to do 15% of 14 million, 13.5 million.
15% of the general fund income, not expenditures.
It's actually expenditures, right?
No.
The general fund, it's supposed to be 15% of the general
Revenue.
fund operating expenditures.
Okay. Stand corrected.
But
Sorry.
I can't do the math right.
No, it's okay. It's roughly we're
real close.
real
yes.
close. But I'm just questioning the format of this particular graph, because if contingency is fully funded, shouldn't it flatline except for the little dips in the general fund? And it should not necessarily track the general fund amount going up and down. Contingency reserve doesn't hit 3 million. It's always 1.6, correct?
It is at 1.6.
Are we talking about so I should be following the delta, the band between general fund and the top of contingency, is that correct?
Yeah, the combined,
I got it. I'm
chart
sorry.
represents the combined amounts. So it was trying to say that when are we dipping into the general fund, and what is our combined general fund and contingency funds amounts to draw upon for cash flow purposes?
I just changed the way I looked at it. I understand. Thank you.
So this is the combined cash flow available for cash flow purposes. You look at basically the top line, and that's a prediction of the city's cash position at any given point in the year.
But it is a little confusing, and it might be better if you could add to that or do another page with just some numbers going across, so we can see where we've been and where we've put money in and where we are now and where our goal was or is, so that we can see it that way, because it is hard to follow the wiggly lines and the.
Because in general, we've funded our contingency reserve to our goal, and now the money we're putting in is going into our emergency reserve.
We're at contingency is at 1.6 million, but right now it should be funded at 1.7 million. So we're $145,000 below that goal.
Good.
And the other take home behind this is, you know, you've heard us talk about it a lot, is that the city's cash position, you know, we use fund accounting, right? And so we adopt a budget at the beginning of the year, and we assume we're at the beginning of the year, the end of the year, and everything in between doesn't really matter. Well, our employees would like to get a paycheck in the middle of the year, and so what this really is intended to do is this is sort of stepping out of fund accounting for a minute and saying our cash position actually changes during the course of the year, and you'll frequently hear us talk about, you know, the period of time that we worry about is sort of the November time period that we're entering right now, because it's the time period in which our revenues tend to not keep up with our expenditures. And so this is something that, you know, Tori and I look at just to make sure that from a contingency standpoint, there's cash on hand to keep us floating.
And if there's any way to present it also, so that people don't think that we're in trouble that we have to borrow this money from these other accounts to make payroll during that month because the property tax hasn't come in yet. It's doing it. I mean, if there's any way we can get away from that this is normal planning, this is what we do, this is when the income, the revenues to us are high, this is when they're low, this is when we have to make the payments, this is what we typically do, this is normal, that kind of thing, to explain to people that way, I think is really helpful, because in the past it's been, we haven't had these good numbers, and so we haven't had as much cushion. So now we have a little more cushion. But to explain it to people and to show people that this is the responsible cash flow management. It comes from somewhere. You're not going to have just millions sitting there for cash flow that isn't designated as something. It's got to be, so it's called something else until you need it and move it, and then it can be moved back. But any other way you have to explain that, next year.
Yes, yes.
Would be really helpful for the layman to understand the city's cash flow. And of course, we know that the school districts are even in worse shape than we are. And if anybody wants to have a more complicated picture of how they handle their cash flow, it's very complicated, and I feel really badly for them that they have to work under that system, have to deal with the state not knowing how much they're going to get every year. I mean, at least we have sales tax and property tax, and we can kind of project. So I really appreciate all your great work that you're doing on this.
Everything Councilmember Harlan said is absolutely true. I mean, the upshot of this is that the worst cash position of the year, we're still $1.5 million available. So, it's very good news is the upshot here, and the contingency fund is designated source it's identified as a source to facilitate this, and it's more than sufficient to do so. So I think your summary that it's perfectly normal and it's exactly what we expected, and the contingency at this point is sufficient for cash flow purposes in our projections.
Thank you. Christine, did you have a comment?
I just want to remind, it was a short time, about a year and a half ago, where this didn't look as rosy. So I think we're just now getting used to reporting positive news. I don't think we all get extremely confident until after we get past those points where we dip back down below and we see we got through it. I really love the fact that our goal was to get to the 2.2. And we're getting ahead of that, so it looks really good. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any of the council members have questions on the report? See none. And remember, the public wish to address the council on our fiscal year 13-14 year-end report. Seeing none, I'll bring it back.
I'll move receipt of this report.
Right, it's a motion to receive. Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah, there's a second from Ed to receive the report. And I just want to congratulate you, Tori, specifically. This was a great report. It has a lot of good tools, both projection tools and kind of retrospective look at where we've been. And I think it's a tremendous result on our fund balance achievement. I think it's a great tool for prospective candidates. I would encourage all of you to be sure to study this because I'm sad I won't be here to be able to participate in some of the allocation of that fund balance, but you will be drawn upon, some of you, to engage in that exercise. So thank you, staff, for these great results and this great report. So with that, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is item E, and this is consider approving an agreement with Rainwater Solutions in an amount not to exceed $2,310 for a pilot city rain barrel program. And the recommended action is to approve that agreement. And Steve, you're back.
I am. So I have a short report. Coming for you, I realize this is a small contract amount. It's mainly to try and do some preliminary advertising for this program. Is our main reason for being here tonight. But we are requesting an agreement with Rainwater Solutions for a pilot rain barrel program. This is primarily an educational effort to raise awareness for our residents of rain harvesting opportunities. Rainwater Solutions and the city will both promote a sale of 50-gallon rain barrels to property owners at a discounted price of $70 per barrel. The retail price for these is $169. We will limit it to 2 barrels per order so that we don't it's more of we want people out there to get a good chance to look at it rather than providing them with more. We can have a second program next winter if we like. So the pricing for the program and the amount, the $70, is based on a minimum order of 33 barrels. The city needs to guarantee the sale of this minimum order, so if nothing sells, the city will be on the hook for 33 barrels or $2,310. We do have sufficient funding for this in our stormwater program. As an added aside, Soquel Creek customers, as you know, the city is served by both the City of Santa Cruz and Soquel Creek. Soquel Creek customers will be eligible for a rebate. They will need to apply to Soquel Creek for that. I believe it's $25 per barrel. It's based on gallonage, but I think that's the way it works out. Those in the City of Santa Cruz, they have a separate rain barrel program, actually through the same company. So customers in Santa Cruz will have 2 options. I just wanted to really talk about the benefits of rainwater harvesting. It promotes on-site infiltration rather than letting water, rush off your property and down the street. So it reduces runoff from developed sites, and which in effect reduces erosion and sediment release to Soquel Creek or other bodies of water. In almost every case, that sediment that is released to creeks and other waterways carries with it greases, oils, pesticides, and other pollutants. So this is really a big effort of our stormwater education program to keep the pollutants out of our creek. It also provides an alternate source for irrigation water. Obviously, it reduces the demand on our potable water systems. We all know that's a significant issue these days. It will, in the end, reduce people's water costs and allow them to keep their gardens greener longer without using the potable water. It's also expensive. These systems are inexpensive and easy to use and maintain. And, large systems, which we're certainly not supplying with these rain barrels, can be used for other purposes such as toilet flushing or car washing if people are interested. So I just saw a quick picture of the rain barrel we'll be offering. It's called the Ivy Barrel. It is made in the USA. It's made out of 100% recycled plastic. It itself is 100% recyclable. You can link several of these together to increase storage capacity. The barrels can be nested if you want to put them away during the summer for easy storage. They come with a mosquito screen, instructions, and are opaque to prevent algae growth. So I think that's the end of my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Dennis.
Steve, I have this correctly. It's $77 a barrel, and then you're eligible for a $25 rebate.
$70 a barrel.
And then you're eligible for a $25 rebate?
In Soquel Creek, yes.
I'll take 2. With a caveat that my neighbor lets me put my barrels on his lot. I have a small lot. If I could put mine,
He's a pretty cranky guy, but I think I can convince him to do it.
Yeah.
I'll take 2.
So we will be advertising it. People will need to go online and purchase them directly from Rainwater Systems. So you sign up there, and then once we'll have a short, or not a short, we'll have a order period where people will go online, pre-order them. Based on the number that are sold. If we sold more than 33, that's great. They'll ship them in, and we'll have them available for pickup on a day to be set. So.
Fantastic. Great.
Amazing.
Yes,
You
Ed.
may just touch on, there's an unlimited amount that can be purchased, or there's just a limited amount?
There is.
If the public signs up to buy 300,
they'll ship 300.
Okay,
yeah.
great.
If we know they're going to 300 are sold, we could probably get a reduced price. But since this is a pilot program, we're only committing to 33.
That's how much we're outlaying on the
Yes.
guaranteeing.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, the installation, I mean, just for, maybe seniors that would like to be able to have a rain barrel, we'll someone be from Rainwater be able to assist them set it up, install it, or is that?
Rainwater Systems, I think, is an out-of-state business, so they're just going to ship them. I do know it comes with directions. It needs to be on, as the picture shows, on a stable platform here that's relatively level. I don't have an immediate answer to that. We could certainly look into if that comes up and people request assistance trying to get that,
I would
help
just
out there.
maybe see what the demand is. If you get, calls from folks and asking, I'd love one of these, but I'm in no position to be able to set it up.
We can probably find a way to help them.
Through the Volunteer Center.
Right.
Helping Hand could probably do it.
Right,
If we
maybe
get a
we
little
could.
contract with Helping Hand, maybe, unless there's somebody else that we want to do a little contract with, and they go to people's homes for free and do things like that, and that would be great to use them more in the community.
And well, I wanted to also inquire about if we have low-income seniors that maybe can't afford the $70. If we could have some sort of subsidized program for those folks, if they're on SSI, that may live in mobile homes on a fixed income.
Certainly, that's something the council could give us direction to try and put together. I think that's certainly is funding along those directions if that's the desire of the council.
Do we still have that home improvement program that we were operating before? Can we use that for it?
No, I'm blanking on the name, but the funding for that came through the redevelopment agency, and with the dissolution of the redevelopment agency, we haven't been funding that. No, we funded with our redevelopment agency. It was a program through the Housing Authority, whereby we provided low-interest loans to low-income folks to make home improvements, but we have not funded that in the current year budget.
But we could move money over from, in the housing program, from something else to that, if we wanted to put a little money into that to provide some low-cost green barrels to low-income people.
I think if you wanted to fund that, simply the direction would be to direct staff to develop such a program for consideration, and it's entirely probable that the stormwater program could fund that.
Well, I'd like to, if the council is in agreement, to see if we could develop that as part of this program. I mean, I think we're trying to. Our goal is to disperse this as widely as possible.
Well,
so
we could
everybody-
also develop a program that the Public Safety Foundation has funding to do some help as well.
Oh, sure.
I think we ought to make it as available to people as possible, and if we need to subsidize a little bit, that's just part of doing business.
Well, great. I think we have concurrence on a program for low income. I'm particularly interested on seniors and fixed income.
In thinking just off the top of my head, the staff work necessary to develop such a program, my recommendation might be, Public Works Director, correct me if I'm wrong, to simply just say we're going to subsidize these things at 50% for all residents.
Rather than the paperwork to go through to qualify people.
I'll be honest with you, I'm just imagining developing a program like that, trying to look at some sort of income certification process. We're talking about a $35 or less subsidy, just in terms of the cities, using our resources effectively.
I would concur.
I like that.
Probably
I like
easier
that
to
even
do
better.
that.
Right.
And certainly that's what both Scotts Valley and Santa Cruz Water Districts, they actually brought in funding from their own to help subsidize it. So yeah, it seems simpler to me.
Okay.
Less paperwork.
Would we be in connection with the SoCal Water Creeks rebate? How would that work with that? Would they have to apply for that?
Yes, the individual property owners are going to have to apply to Soquel Creek. Soquel Creek is aware that we're doing this. They're going to actually advertise it on their website, so they're part of this program. But
so we would discount it after they had received the rebate from Soquel. How are we establishing we got a $70 barrel and they're going to reduce it 25. Now it's a $45 barrel. So what are we actually trying to do here?
Well, I still think let's keep it simple and say, well, you guys pick a subsidy amount that you want to pay, and we reduce that price, and if they
we
can
pick like a $20 subsidy, and they would buy a barrel for $25, or either $25 subsidy and I'm
Right.
just trying to come up with a number, that's all, just.
I think what we, from a staffing point, we just want to be able to treat everybody the same and have a fixed price that we're offering them for sale. So,
You want a motion, Sam?
Yes, if you,
Okay, I'll move a staff resolution with the additional condition that we allow a 50% discount for seniors of fixed income.
But how are they going to qualify? That's what they're
Yeah.
trying to get around. You don't want people coming in with a piece of paper and
Well,
stuff.
how do we?
No.
We would just do it for everybody. We'd give everybody, if we wanted to put, like $20,000 or $30,000 into the program from somewhere else, then everybody would get it for,
I
So
think
everybody gets the 50%.
yeah.
right, that's what they're proposing, and I think that, I mean, this is a pilot program.
right.
We're only
We could
doing-
limit the number that we want to sell and that we want to subsidize if we want. That's certainly
We
something
did
within our
500 barrels at, I mean, how much are we talking about? I mean, it would probably be a big
$500
commodity.
at $30 a barrel is,
$15,000.
yeah, I'm not sure we want to, that would be up to you.
Pretty big exposure.
Right.
When public hears that you're going to have people stand in the line for this way. I mean, it's
So,
not like you need,
City
you
of
need
Santa-
somewhere to
Right.
to set
City of
a
Santa
cap or
Cruz,
something.
in 2 efforts of doing this last 2 winters, has sold 2,000 of them.
Did
And
they get a
have
50%
19,000
discount
customers, yeah.
They had the 50%
So,
discount.
you know, I think, yes.
Do we have time for you to bring us back here with this written out, Steve?
Yes.
Okay, let's do that. Let's see what we got here. Let him write the program. You,
I mean,
invent the wheel, steal Santa Cruz.
I think we need to be realistic about a number and anticipate
Right.
the
I
sales.
think we would want to limit the sales at that point, say maybe to 100.
Yeah.
Because
I
we
mean,
can do
why
it
don't
again
we
next
just-
winter.
Why don't we just start with 100,
Yeah.
saying we're going to subsidize at the rate of $20 a barrel for 100
Right,
barrels.
so that's $2,000 and.
And let's see how that does.
Mr. Mayor, perhaps, if you have an influx of seniors, maybe we could, and I speak only because I'm your representative on the Safety Foundation, we could focus on the senior population and underwrite their program.
Well, that's what my motion was, is to only do the seniors. Now we don't want to do that, apparently.
Because somebody on our staff is going to have to look at their ID and say whether they're a senior, check their.
I think we
name,
need
check
to just open it up
application.
for, let's start with the first 100. And let's just
Of
get these
anybody.
out there.
Of anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think we
right.
should limit any, and if we have a big influx, the foundation can look, I can bring it to their board and say, let's take on the senior population and we can
First
help.
100 is almost $2,500. That's a
Right.
pretty good gesture, I would
So,
say.
so the barrel would be, if it's a half price, that'd be $35 a barrel you'd pay.
Yeah.
But you're eligible for $25 rebate.
Right.
For each barrel from Water District. Is it
I
per
was
barrel
thinking
or-
after the rebate, okay, so if
After
it's
the rebate, it's
a $70
$35.
barrel, it's now a $45 barrel, where you would be doing $22.50, or I was just gonna come up with a round number of $20 or $25, just to make it simple. If we just if we matched the SoCal rebate, it would probably be.
But we're already subsidizing it, are we not?
We are not, as proposed here, we are not. We've negotiated a reduced price from
Oh, okay.
169 down to 70.
Then I'd have to concur, and I think we should open it up to anyone. The rainy season obviously is upon us, I hope, and it's time to get these barrels out in the street.
Can we just match the SoCal rebate?
Well, we also have residents that aren't in SoCal
Steve,
Creek Water
my
District.
motion is to send it back to Steve. Let Steve write this thing up. We know exactly what we're doing here. Bring it back to the next meeting.
But
It's
he
2
doesn't
weeks
know how
away.
much we want to spend,
Well,
how much we're willing to spend.
he's heard us. He'll know.
But, I mean, why don't we just, approve 100 barrels now,
Okay.
and then that we get some experience. I mean, who's going to apply for them? Are they going to apply for them? And if we say $20 is the city's subsidy, that means that, well, I mean, we're more likely to get out, be able to contribute to 100 barrels. And then just, see how it goes. And then, and then ask Steve to come back with, well, the results of this. How did it go? If you sell out 100 quickly, come back quickly. If they're still lingering out there, wait till that's done. So that's what I would suggest.
Okay, and then so everyone's eligible, and you're eligible for a maximum of 2 barrels.
At
And
$20 a barrel.
At $20 a
No,
barrel.
yeah, so we're going to sell the barrels at $50 a barrel.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
We're gonna subsidize $20 to every barrel at this point.
And 100
We're gonna commit to
100 barrel maximum at this point.
$2,000 as an entry point.
And let them know that they can get there, so if they're on SoCal Creek, they're.
Yeah, we will
eligible.
certainly advertise that.
Will they cost 77?
Cost us $70 a barrel.
Okay.
Are you okay with that, Dennis?
That's my motion. That's fine.
All right.
Yeah, I'm okay.
$20 a barrel for the first 100 people.
Good.
I'll second that.
Okay. And a report back as soon as they're gone.
Absolutely.
Okay, and
Yep.
then we can see
We have
whether we
nothing
want
but
to do it
barrels.
again. Right. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any member of the public would like to address the council on this item? Yes. Okay, yes. So, yeah, we have a vote to do it right away. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Steve. Which brings us to the last item this evening, item F, which is to consider a resolution of intent regarding the future uses for the Measure M money. The Measure M is the transit occupancy tax that is going to be on the November ballot. The recommended action, well, there is none. It's up to council discretion. We'll start with a staff report. Jamie?
Mr. Mayor, council members, I have a very short presentation for you this evening. As you know, the Measure M, a proposal to increase the transient occupancy tax in Capitola from 10 to 11% is going to be on the ballot this November. Council has requested this item to be placed on the agenda, which would be a resolution of intent regarding how those funds could be used. A resolution of intent is not a binding document on future city councils, but nevertheless represents a commitment by this council and an intention about where this council sees the need for those funds to go. I'm available for questions.
Yes, Mike.
I think since I was the one that asked to have this put on the agenda, I should underscore the fact that it was not put on this agenda in order to promote Measure M in any way. It was merely to correct an oversight on my part when I requested Measure M to be considered by the council. I neglected to ask for a resolution of intent at that time. So it's sort of closing the loop. And regardless of individual positions, I think that the fact that it is on the ballot, all 5 council members have the ability to weigh in on, where we would want this money to be used. And I know that the FAC considered this, and the treasurer probably has a report on it as well. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Christine, you want to give us the report from the FAC?
Sure. So the FAC met on this last Tuesday, and then we also met yesterday in regards to Measure M funding, or Measure M, what to use the funds for. So the FACT recommendation is that we use Measure M funds for projects that are related to economic development as well as enhanced tourism. Projects such as repair of the wharf. The last Finance Advisory Committee meeting that we had Steve Jesberg come and discuss CIP and the projects that are kind of in the works. And one thing that stuck out to us was the wharf. The wharf currently in that fund, it has a balance of $40,000. We were talking about replacing pilings, which cost $50,000 to replace one piling. So at this current time, we don't really have enough funds in there. So it could be things like the wharf, or repaving streets, or putting in a new parking structure, or whatnot. Anything that is involved in enhancing tourism. So that is a recommendation from FAC. Any questions?
I'd love to know how much you want to enhance tourism by, what that means. And I'd like to have a separate discussion about that at another meeting.
Well, I don't know about enhancing, but I think the thing that came forward with the CIP discussion was the glaring thing was maintenance and repair to the wharf was listed at $880,000, and it was fully unfunded.
Right.
So almost
We've
$1
had
million of deferred maintenance, and in addition to that, with the advent of some federal grants in the future, and having a quantity of money to match would increase our chances of getting millions of dollars for our wharf. And having maintenance by emergency, as opposed to going forward and adding pilings and things like that. So that's kind of always been my focus. I've been tender about the wharf. Every time I walk on it, I realize that we only replace pilings when we lose them. Maybe it's time to throw half a dozen of them out there. So that was my gut feeling, but Just me.
No, I have no qualms about fixing the wharf. You know, we've had this discussion about every 10 years. What are we going to do? How much? Are we going to raise it? Are we going to tear it down? Are we going to fix it? How much are we going to fix it? So we've had that serious discussion several times, and of course, it's always time to have it again. But just the question of enhancing tourism.
If we could enhance tourism by the % that we enhanced it this year, we'd all be very
There's a lot of
happy.
residents who don't want that. A lot of residents who, you know, their limits are about there for traffic, parking, getting around, that kind of thing. So that's why I say at some future date, I'd like to just have that discussion about where are we with the town, with services, with our money that we can spend, how many more people do we want to bring in town if we do? Where are we going to put them? How much does that cost? What does that do to the rest of the town? What's, you know, the big plan for all of this, rather than just, let's bring more tourists, let's bring more tourists, let's bring more tourists, because, you know, there's a significant number of people in town who say, I think we had enough this summer, I think that's probably good, we don't need to, you know, spend a whole lot more money on, you know, bringing thousands more here.
No,
I think it's more, I think it's a more quality experience when they are here. They walk on a sidewalk that they don't trip on. My mom tripped in the middle of the street this summer.
I'm totally with you there.
So
and
I think
yeah.
improving and enhancing their experience when they are here, not necessarily more, but just making it better for the people that come here.
You know, I think that message needs to go out to everybody, because what they're hearing, you know, or what they're, you know, parking structures do more for the tourists. You know, you got to get down to the details of it, which is, you know, do you really want that thousands more people, or you want to make it better for them? Well, I think we all want to make it better for them, and that's why I want to use some of that money for steam cleaners for the village.
Okay, let's see, Dennis, you want to?
You know, I sat down for about 10 minutes and I wrote a short list of things that we have to do as a community or take care of because of not only the tourist industry, but because of the enjoyment of the people who live here, and also the businesses that operate here, including the Shadowbrook and Paradise Beach Grill and everyone who has a business in the vicinity to it. And I'm going to read this list, and I'm going to, and right now this is all coming out of our, most of it's coming out of our general fund. It's paid by everyone in this community, and so. The argument here being is what should the people who are coming here pay to use the facilities, and what are we giving them? And so here's my list. The wharf, huge project. Beach maintenance. Every time you see those tractors down there and they're grading out, cleaning that beach down there. Your park, Esplanade Park, and the restrooms. The village walkways. All the village walkways are taken care of by the public. Probably 70% of the work that your public works crews do is related to the village. Beach cleanups. Maybe it's Save Our Shores, maybe it's a different groups, whoever's doing that. Soquel Creek and the Lagoon. Long and short term, we're taking care of that. We have maintenance, we have cleanups, we have water quality monitoring. Those things all benefit everyone down the whole water chain, including the village and the people who visit and come here. Repair to the jetties and beach stand and retention. We know we have a jetty that's due to be replaced. If we have a big storm, we could. If everyone looks back at our past, we lost the beach once, and it cost us significant money as a community to put it back. That jetty's important. It needs to be redone. Visitor parking. We just made a $2 million debt to a general fund, being paid for by all the residents to benefit basically the village and the people who visit here. Our public arts program is partially subsidized because it's a city-run thing, which everyone who comes to this community benefits from. Our street cleaning, not just in the village, but the surrounding areas too. The shuttle service that we run a shuttle service for the people who visit here, not for the locals. That doesn't benefit the locals at all, besides the fact that we see people riding instead of walking. The bandstand maintenance and the programming that we do through the bandstand. The beach lifeguard system is done for visitors there. Of course, certainly the local people benefit from that too. Street lights, the street lights in the village is paid for from that. So, and even the policing of the village. I don't know what the percentage of police calls we have, but I'm sure that the village is way up there on the list. And so all those add up to a huge demand for taxpayer dollars to go and taking care of this tourist industry. And I personally, I love the tourist industry. I do. I love living in a tourist town. I live all my life. I love the vitality of them coming here, and I want to maintain it. And Stephanie's point's well taken. Maybe there is a breaking point that needs to be discussed. And I'm not talking about increasing it. I'm talking about just taking care of what we have here. And that's why we're here tonight, is to discuss that issue. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Dennis. Yes, Ed.
I'd just like to add one word to the description. It sounds like this was economic development and enhanced tourism, and I would just like to add enhance the impact of tourism, because that's what I think this was all about, was the impact that tourism places on us. And everything that's suggested because of that. If the wharf is deteriorating, maybe it's because of the weather, maybe it's because of people on the wharf, the sidewalks, the streets. I believe that the parking lot, everything was because of the impact. They're not trying to expand it, not trying to bring more people into town, just recognizing that tourism brings benefits and it also brings wear and tear on our infrastructure. So I just want to address that, we want to address the impact. I'd just like to see that one word
To
added.
mitigate the impact, not to enhance it.
No.
Well, they want,
Okay.
they want to enhance, but however you want to add it in, I just
Yeah.
want to recognize that we have an impact of tourism, and that's where I think justifies it.
Okay.
Any other council questions? I want to see if any member of the public wishes to address the council on this item. Seeing none, I'm going to close the microphone. Yes, Sean, come on, please.
I couldn't resist coming up for this. Christine, that was a great report. I wished I knew that it was on the agenda for the Finance Advisory Committee. Talking about economic development, I think really is critical. So that's one reason why I want to come up. Tori's report sort of leveled it out for me, I have to admit. So put a little more perspective in things. But I also like to talk about some of the unintended things that happen because of tourism. So I'm campaigning up and down 38th Avenue, right? And a lot of the neighbors are telling me that, in particular in the summertime, the traffic just whizzes by there. I mean, an increased load on traffic. Okay. And I'm talking to mothers that are actually trying to take their kids to the beach because that's the best time to go, right? And they're actually pretty scared about the fact that their kids are right close to traffic zipping up and down 38th Avenue. So I'm looking at Tori's report, and we're going to do an overlay, right, on 38th up near Capitola, Raposa, et cetera. Unfortunately, Capitola shares that road with Santa Cruz. So one of the consequences of the fact that we are a tourism town is the fact that we have extra traffic in certain areas of the city. So the way I look at this is, okay, let's try to deal with it. So I propose some of the money should be given to a joint effort with the County of Santa Cruz to deal with the issue on 30th Avenue. It's a speedway. We are overlaying some of the road, which may mean that some people are going to go faster. 3 years ago, a bunch of citizens at Castle got together and tried to organize speed bumps. Now, it wasn't a done deal. A lot of people didn't like the idea of speed bumps. Maybe we have better ways to do it now. But I think that's a consequence of the fact that we have a lot of tourists in town. So we have to try to deal with some of those consequences. And one of those is the fact that there's a lot of people that use 38th Avenue. I went the last 3 days watching to see how that avenue is used. There's a lot of people on bikes, a lot of people coming home from work, and a lot of people walking. And it's a heavily used street. So I propose that we have such a program that looks at some of the consequences that affect our residences in a negative way. And I think 38th Avenue is one of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacques. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'm going to close the microphone. I'll bring it back for further deliberation and hopefully action.
Oh, okay. Since you mentioned action, I'd like to try and float a motion. And in view of what the Finance Advisory Committee did, I was originally intending on requesting that this money be put into a wharf maintenance and repair fund. But Stephanie hit a nerve with me, and that is the steam cleaning of the streets, the sidewalks, which we've always struggled with. Where are we going to get the money to do that on a really regular basis to make it nice? So I'd like to expand the motion to say that we should approve a resolution of intent to put the 1% for Measure M into a fund that's dedicated to mitigating the impact of tourists on our town, such as maintenance of the wharf, maintenance of the sidewalks in the village,
ADA improvements.
and any other such projects that may be brought to the council in future regarding tourists and the impact on our town.
I'll second that motion, Mike. We're kind of defining the geographic area. We're assigning the Esplanade area to the wharf. We should also probably include the beach and the groin.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
I think
we're
that,
defining a geographic area that it has the most impact from the tourist industry.
right.
But tourists are everywhere. I don't know if we should, I think we ought to think about that.
Absolutely, but
Because
that's why I'm saying I want to open it up so that initially we're talking about the wharf, the beach, the village, the jetty, or any other place at individual council discretion. It can be brought back to the council and say, we have this money in the tourist industry mitigation fund, and these things are listed, and there's this other line that says, or other tourist impact. Certainly, if someone can bring to us something in the avenues that's being heavily impacted by tourists.
We have those big hotels over there, the people are there and they're going to the beach.
That's why I'm leaving it.
Crosswalk, or
I'm
they
leaving
may
the
need
resolution of intent
sidewalk.
open, but I'd like it to be brought to the council so that it isn't just spent somewhere. So that if there is a project coming out of this fund, it's brought to us and say, well, we have this in our tourist impact mitigation fund. We would like to spend it on this. The council can discuss it, give okay to spend it, and we move along.
Are you open to parking in that, Mike?
Yes. I think anything that we can make there's a nexus with the tourist industry and the thousands of people
What
that...
kind of parking are you talking
I
about?
think tourist mitigation fund sounds like a great title. I mean, Stephanie, I agree. If we have problems on 38th or 41st and we address it because of traffic, of a tourism issue, this would open it up to being able to address it.
And frankly, I can see where a year ago, if this had been in place, staff could have brought forward to us the crosswalk change on Stockton, which is clearly a tourist impact mitigation move, and we would have paid for it from this fund.
Well, if you just take a step back, last year at the league conference that I went to, I remember bringing your report that one of the themes last year was how to make your community, was economic development, how to increase your businesses, how to attract more businesses, how to keep your businesses, and how to grow your economy. And one of them was to make your community a place where people want to work, live, do business. So if we're going to pass this and have this money, I think we should just be really broad about it.
Right.
That it's coming from the tourists. They have an impact very broadly on the whole town.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know where we want to spend that money. There's my first pet peeve is, one of them is just that we always argue about the steam cleaning of the sidewalks, and we're frustrated that we don't have greasy sidewalks. Well, we can solve that one. That's an easy one.
And this is an easy, I look at this as an easy way to look on a fund, like when Larry needs new computers up in the office, he looks at his technology fund. There it is. So whenever it gets brought to the council, we can have that to move upon. Because in my view, everything we do to mitigate tourist impact also improves the quality of life for the citizens.
Well, it might be that crosswalk over going to New Brighton to the dog park or something like that. I mean, who knows what we might find. There's a nexus of trying to make this community better for the people that come here.
Is the motion clear, Mr. Mayor, or have I drifted off into the ether?
Mike, give me one strong
Well, it's so broad, I think it's very clear, and it's unclear.
Let me try and rephrase it.
Oh.
If we want to. Does staff, Mr. City Manager, are you following anything I'm saying, and can you give me any suggestions?
Well, we need some legal advice because we need it to be broad enough.
Well, we definitely need to keep it as a resolution of intent because this is a simple majority tax
Correct.
measure. So we
Can't
want
be
it
specific.
clear that it's a resolution of intent only,
Can't be
and is changeable by future councils.
That's correct. And so I think you talk in terms of budgeting for and funding tourist impact mitigation measures.
That is my motion.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second, and actually, well, maybe I'll just check with now that we have a motion on the table, does anyone want to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll close the microphone, I'll bring it back. I guess, I mean, I'll go along with the motion. I'm not sure if it's such a broad description of how the money could be used. I mean, what I envision that future councils, if they abide by it, which they're not compelled to, or are just going to have to play this game of tying a nexus to the particular project. I would have preferred there be something more specific that the public could actually see and be assured about, and have some way of evaluating whether or not it was actually achieved if they should approve the measure. And I assume that the purpose here is to get people to vote yes and approve the measure.
You want to suggest some language?
But, well,
If I had thought that the wharf would have garnered 3 votes, I would have gone forward, but I wasn't feeling the love on that one, so I cut it back.
It's too early. There's too many
Right.
other things out there, that are on our horizon.
Right, and it is a difficult thing, Mike, because just saying one thing, is such a short-term project, and this is perpetual money.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, well, what comes after that? I was thinking something more, phrasing it toward, like traffic and circulation. But, that's kind of broad in general, but it has more specific things. I mean, I'm thinking the parking structure, which helps us create a park, and Capitola, the perennial issue is traffic and parking. And
Streets.
And streets, right. It's basically about our infrastructure. But we have a motion. I'm not trying to disrupt it. I think this could as well.
And to be clear, Mr. Mayor, sincerely, pass, fail, to be honest, and I think we all need to be honest, Capitola is not going to live or die by this 1%. And we know this. We had a very favorable report from our treasurer and from our finance director. So this is not a life and death ballot measure for sure. But I would like to see some kind of direction, and I've always felt that, but we'll see. Let the chips fall where they may.
Okay. I think with that, I'll call for a vote on the motion at the table. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. That will bring us to the adjournment of the regular City Council agenda for this evening. And now we will move into the agenda for the successor agency, which is the successor to the former Capitola Redevelopment Agency. And we will begin with a roll call once again.
Councilmember Harlan.
Here.
Councilmember Norton.
Here.
Councilmember Botar.
Here.
Councilmember Termini.
Here.
Mayor Story.
Here. Are there any members of the public wish to address the successor agency at this point? I'm losing the audience now. Seeing none, I'm going to close that. We'll go to board member staff comments. Are there any? Seeing none, we come to the consent calendar, which is one item. Anybody want to pull the consent item?
Move the consent.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
And which will bring us to the general successor agency business. We have one item, which is to consider the approval of the recognized obligation payment schedule for the period January 1, 2015 to June 30th, 2015. Also referred to as the ROPS. Do we have a staff report?
Mr. Mayor, council members, I have a short presentation for you this evening. This is the biannual ROPS that we do every 6 months. The highlights of this ROPS include the final payment into our library trust fund, which fully completes that obligation. It also includes repayment of the loan that the city made to the successor agency to pay the settlement in the Leonard litigation, which you will recall we entered into several weeks maybe earlier last month. And in addition, begins to provide funding for some of the injunctive relief projects that were also identified in that settlement, which is the repairs to some of the pathways on the Rispin property. I will also note that this is one of the first times that our recognized obligation schedule doesn't fully use up all of the old RDA money, so there will be some residual that will be distributed back to the taxing entities. With that, I'm available for questions.
Other questions? Jimmy, I had a question. What's the shelf life of these ROBs, or these particular obligations? Do they endure until we get around to it? Should we be trying to...
Mr. Mayor, our goal is to wrap up the affairs of the redevelopment agency, and we are getting around to it. We are using all the resources we can to do that. Each one of the agreements includes specific timelines whereby they'll expire. If I remember correctly, I think that we are projecting a complete payoff of all the agreements by, I think 2018 was the last estimate that we have.
Okay. In particular, I'm just concerned about the 41st Avenue, the Mall Economic Development Project.
You and I both.
And whether, you know, because we can't get traction, or the mall can't get traction on any particular projects, we're going to miss out on that opportunity. And so that would be the one I would just, you know, make sure that the successor agency keeps an eye on and keeps pushing forward with the mall owners. So.
Mr. Mayor, I can assure you that I'm concerned about that as well. I'm working hard with the mall and Metro, and in fact, I anticipate bringing you an update on that project before the election, before the new year. We're hoping to be able to bring a proposal to relocate the transit center. We'll see if we're...
Well, there sure seems to be a lot of vacancies in that mall right now.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, obviously it's concerning, you know. So we're working with these folks, and this money isn't on the table forever. It obviously has a shelf life.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll ask any member of the public wish to address the successor agency on this item. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for a motion and or comments or approval, or the recommended action is to approve this ROB schedule.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second. Oh.
There's a motion. Second. Stephanie beat you, Mike. So.
I know. She's quick.
I knew you wanted in on this one, but there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Motion passes unanimously, which would bring us to the adjournment of the meeting of the